We got in the beginning, right at the beginning of January, so I'm pounding them, because I don't want them to be like
This
me.
is January of 07.
Yeah, and I'm pounding them saying, hey, don't do what I did, like, this is what you're going to experience, like, I need you to show restraint, like, any asshole can shoot a building, like, you're there to actually solve the problem.
And in January of 07, you were anticipating going back to Ramadi 2 in what time frame?
We weren't anticipating going back to Ramadi, we were anticipating going back to Iraq, and we thought we were going in July. And then President Bush's speech came, State of the Union speech, and he said, we were in the field, and he said, 4,000 Marines to Ambar, and, literally right after the speech, word started coming down, you're leaving 2 weeks from now. And we were like, what? And we thought we were leaving 2 weeks. And then the colonel came and said, he said, I don't know when we're leaving, but we have been pushed up. So then 2 weeks after that, or however soon, he said, we're going back to Ramadi, we're going in April. And that was definitely a mixed emotion. I remember we all cheered, and I remember saying, why the hell am I cheering, What are you doing? But
And so this 18 concept you've been working on, and you're briefing with your NCOs, your platoon, how was that disseminated out through the company?
It was it started getting disseminated to the former CO, and it didn't really pick up traction. And
That would be Captain Quinn.
No.
Oh,
There's Captain Quinn, then there's another guy, and then there's Captain Mines. The other guy, who will remain nameless, ended up going on the MIT. The relationship there was more of an independent one, where I was still going to do company training, obviously do company and battalion training, but I was going to do my platoon training just for my platoon. Then Captain Mines came in, I want to say he came in February.
February of 07, Cap Mines.
I want to say he came in February. And by that point, my platoon had already transitioned. We were already talking about this. I was briefing to my Marines. We were coming out how we were actually going to execute it. And I said, okay.
So by February of 07, was Sergeant Humphrey's reception to you was pretty strong?
Oh yeah. We had the meeting mid-January. He took to it right away, and by this point, the squad leaders and myself we're bouncing ideas, and we're putting this to paper and how we want to do this. And the initial, we thought Ramadi was still completely violent, and that's all we knew of. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to live out in the city by ourselves in neighborhoods, and we wanted to mutually support each other, but we wanted to be separate as squads. So the biggest unit would be a squad, and we wanted to live with the people, be supported by the people, and we wanted to continually be out there. And we would have the company support us by bringing out batteries to us, but we wanted to eat out in town, and we wanted to fully be integrated into the community. Well, the squad leaders, and when Captain Mines came on board, I had the squad leaders and myself brief him, but I had the squad leaders brief him because I didn't want to brief him and then him be like, you're just a fucking crazy lieutenant, I don't even know who you are. This is literally probably a week after he showed up. I didn't want him to be like, well, this is just some lieutenant, his platoon's not on board with this. So I had the squad leaders do it so he would see that, one, they had thought this through, that they were extremely educated, and that they, as not as junior Marines, but as enlisted Marines, were completely on board with this mission.
And is that also because the squad leaders would be the operational commanders of 13 Marine units?
Yeah, it was. At that point, I thought of them so highly that I knew they could communicate it well, but I wanted to make sure he understood that the Marines were on board. That was the intent of why I had them deliver. And I was there, and I was giving amplifying information, mostly because I can't shut up, but whatever. And the reaction was not what we were going for, and we didn't get it was along the lines of no, is what it came.
That was a reaction from Captain Mines.
Yeah. And he wasn't negative about it by any means, but he said it was too risky. And he said battalion wouldn't buy off on it, and it was too risky. It wasn't negative, but it certainly wasn't what we wanted. I mean, you can certainly talk to Captain Muntz about this, but when I get an idea in my head, you know, and I think it's the right thing to do, like, I'm going to do it, and I want to do it. And so what happened was an interesting, you know, I don't even know if Captain Muntz knows this, but and I appreciate you not telling him this, but what I did is I went to Major Muntz then, or Major Quinn then, the Battalion XO, and I said, okay, here's my idea. One, can you talk to the battalion commander about this? Two, I'm gonna keep training like this. I want top cover. So if this shit goes down, like if people start asking too many questions, I just want to say I briefed you. And he gave me the leeway, and he made me feel comfortable enough to keep going on with this.
Did the fact that you was former Lima company commander help?
Yeah, because, well, I always, throughout my time since he left Lima, Luke and I always, I mean, Major Quinn went on to greater and better things, but we still utilized him, and he obviously still utilized us. So it allowed him to have a great connection into the companies and into what was going on, and it allowed us to know what was the battalion, you know, thinking. He told us some information ahead of time that allowed us to jump the gun, and he just gave us a different perspective, which allowed us to accomplish some things we want to do.
And then can you move forward into, you make the deployment in April of 07.
Well, what happens is we're doing Mojave Viper.
Okay.
We keep training this, and now Captain Muntz is, Captain Muntz is coming up with his own idea about pit teams and breaking up. Not quite to where we were in Ramadi, but we were moving towards that direction. And then they went on their pre-deployment site survey, PDSS. No, it wasn't PDSS. They went on the pre-deployment advanced party. And they call back and they say, "Holy shit, it's totally different. Scrap everything you're doing. Go back to what you were doing." So what I briefed a month earlier and got to know about, thankfully I don't listen, and I continued doing what I was doing, because when he called back, we were already set up like that.
So can you just set the stage for that phone call? Is it a phone call to you and the other lieutenants, or is it to Larson?
No, Luke was over. I was acting CEO of Lima Company at that point, and so I think it was an email back, and then we finally got phone call, I think, but it was mostly through email. He said, "Ramadi's totally different. It's different. It's safe now. Immediately start preparing the Marines for a different Ramadi." And you know, one thing Captain Muntz was very cognizant of that we differed on was, I still had, even though I wanted to do this A-team approach, I still had a more hardline approach to doing it in terms of operational tactics. He was talking more about de-escalating the situation, but I had a different background, so I was like, you can't get away with doing things like that because you'll get killed. Well, what happened is the environment changed, and so it allowed what I wanted to do and what he wanted to do, and it just clicked, and I don't know how it ended up working out, but it just worked. And so when we got boots in Ramadi, you know, I pinned Lieutenant Humphrey, which is funny. He picked up Sergeant, and then Lieutenant Humphrey, he picked up Sergeant, and then the day later Lieutenant. And so he was Lieutenant Humphrey, and he took over a station, and I took over sabotage, because Iraqi Army was there, and IPs were there, so there were like 200 some Iraqis there, and then.
And where did that take place? Was that